Sofia Rose Bernadi, welcome to the Hey Sunshine podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited about this.
I am so excited you're here. And it's so funny because I was on your podcast, obviously, last week and we were recording an interview. And we just thought, why not get you on the podcast as well and chat all things business, productivity, running an amazing, incredible, solid business. So yeah, I'm so wrapped that you're here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to dive deep on all of the things today.
All of the things. So as we mentioned on your podcast, we have so many like similar circles. You coached with Blake, my partner. We've got the same business coach. We've got the same kinesiology coach. I'm pretty sure we share a lot of other things.
Yes.
So yeah, I think there's so many similarities that we can kind of pull on today. But I thought I would start by addressing the elephant in the room, which is you're 23 years old. Is that right?
I'm now 25, but I
25.
started my
yeah.
business when I was 21. So
Okay, amazing. So because I'm like, there's all different posts being like 22, 23. I'm like, what
no,
year?
I reached certain milestones
Yes.
at certain ages, and that's what I reference just to be like to show people what's possible for them. And so yes, it can get confusing, but
No,
yes,
I love it.
now.
But even so, you're 25 years old and you run a business that's made $500,000 in, I think, is it 4 years, 5 years?
It hasn't even been 4 years yet. It'll be 4 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Well, just there's so much I want to celebrate you for. And I know I celebrated you last week, but just like your consistency, the way you show up, the way that like it feels like nothing rocks your boat and you just continue to show up for your business. So we will dive into like your consistency and productivity hacks today. But I would love just for like the listeners to get a gauge, like where did you start your biz journey? Like how did you fall into business coaching?
Yeah, so it's quite funny because I in school was never that smart. Like I didn't really do well in anything and I had no idea what to do with my life. I felt like everyone around me knew what they were going to study at university and I just felt completely clueless. But one thing I did know is that I wanted to help people. But as you know, that's pretty broad considering you're helping people in literally any industry. But I knew I wanted to help people. I just didn't know how. And whenever I thought about being a psychologist or a counselor, I felt really contracted by that. I was visualizing being in a dark room diagnosing people and I was just like, that's not what I want to do. So I felt lost for a really long time. And I was at one point, I think it was 2018, going through a breakup and feeling really lost, having zero confidence in myself. And that really forced me to dive into personal development to kind of understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling and to figure things out. And through that, I started reading more, watching lots of YouTube videos, and then decided to invest in a 4-day seminar by Tony Robbins in September 2019, because it was all about, finding your purpose. So I went to that event and that was really scary for me. It was an $1,000 ticket. I had never invested in myself before. I avoided their sales calls like 5 times, even though I knew I wanted to go. And yeah, I was 21 at the time. And I went to that event and I broke through all of these limitations I had had on myself, that I wasn't good enough. I was never going to amount to anything. I wasn't lovable, like all of these really dark beliefs. And it was through releasing them and then just having this big wake up call. Like if you've ever been to any personal development events, everyone's so high energy. And in particular at these Tony Robbins events, everyone's jumping around, each other and so positive, and I had never experienced anything like that before. And I just had this light bulb moment all of a sudden that what Tony Robbins was doing, being on stage helping people and people's lives just completely changing and him probably not even recognizing how much he was positively impacting certain people, I was like, I want to do that. And then I just had this light bulb moment that I actually can do that, because so many people at that event were coaches. And the moment I realized that that was actually a career path and that was possible for me, immediately after that event, I hired a coach to help me start my coaching business. And I just have never looked back ever since. So that's really where it started, to be honest, was it made sense why nothing had made sense up until that moment, because I just didn't know the industry existed.
And even being an event like that, that's so expansive. And as you said, meeting other coaches and being like, holy shit, there's actually like a job out there that I can help people. I get paid really well to do it. You know, like that would have been such an eye-opening experience for you. And Tony Robbins is amazing. I just remember watching, have you seen his Netflix documentary? I just remember watching it and like sobbing, you know, just thinking this is so life-changing.
Yeah.
So Sophia, talk me through the narrative, because starting an online business coaching business when like you haven't had a business before that, like tell me, what was the narrative going through your mind? Did you have imposter syndrome play out? What did it look like for you?
Yeah, everything. It was the most uncomfortable thing ever. I had so much fear and doubt. And so I left that event, mid-September 2019. And then by the time I sort of got my shit together, all of a sudden the global pandemic hit, early the following year. So I really started my business at interesting timing. And in hindsight, it was a very positive thing. Because of the lockdowns, I almost had like no other option but to lean into that, because I was working in hospitality, like that all shut down and I didn't really have anything else to do. So what I did was there was a lot of negativity online all of a sudden, because everyone was just in a really uncertain situation. And I decided to create a private Facebook group for like just this positive little bubble that people that just wanted some positivity could come into. And I decided to run like this 5-day challenge on habit building, goal setting, building confidence, all that sort of stuff. And I just had so much fun with it. And that's really where things started to happen. And then, I got a few clients from that and it sort of rolled from there. But definitely the first year and a half, I'm going to say, in business was just the biggest ups and downs emotionally for me. It was so new, so uncertain. I had so much fear come up of like, can I do this? Am I good enough? It's not working. And yeah, so many mindset blocks. So I had to invest in a mindset coach, had to invest in a business coach. Then I learned about energetics. So I really invested in lots of people, thinking that I was missing something and just really needing that support to be able to feel stable in any shape or form. So I really I invested a lot in myself, and I leaned on my partner a lot. Just he really saw all of it behind the scenes, just like how up and down it was for me emotionally. And I remember like the start of every month feeling like I had started again, and I just had a narrative. So it didn't matter how amazing I had just done for that month. The moment it clocked over to the first of the next month, I was like, I can't do that again. And I just constantly felt like I was starting again. It was just a roller coaster.
So I want to unpick this idea of like, because I know a lot of businesses and, in the coaching industry, it's like, okay, we go on what we made for the month. Like, it's a 10K month, it's a 20K month. Like, do you now look at it in that sort of like a time block, or do you kind of look bigger picture? Because I just want to explain where I'm looking at. So sometimes when we can look at the month, when we go from the 1st to the 30th versus maybe like the 15th to the 15th, it's a very different picture. And it's almost like I'm sort of leaning towards maybe going off like a 3-month average, because I think that really shows the fluctuations in business. So do you still go to month? Do you still have those feelings like, oh, I've got to do it all again, I've got to start from ground zero?
Definitely not. I do not look at it like that. I'm obviously aware of what I make month to month, but I have no thoughts around it. Like, it just is what it is. And I think there's a few things. One, just like being in business now for a few years, like I wouldn't be in business now if I was still going so up and down like that, like having that narrative. So something that really helped me shift from that was, instead of spending the first week or two of the new month like freaking out that I'm starting again, I flipped it. Instead, I spent the first week celebrating the month before, and that sort of like removed the gap between the months, because I was still celebrating from the prior month. So practicing to actually celebrate was a big turning point for me, because it was something that I had just never done before prior. And I noticed a huge turning point in my business when I started to actually celebrate and acknowledge the things I had done, because I was so hard on myself. So that was one thing. But then also I've really shifted my business model to have a lot more stability. So I have a really strong reoccurring revenue. And so I know how much I'm making already next month. And we're in the start of this month at the time of recording this. And so I already know that because I have that locked in income. People are paying me on a monthly basis, and that's really helped me from like a stability point. Is like I've got this reoccurring revenue rather than actually starting, at zero. And then also I'm in business for the long run. I'm not here for like the quick fixes and the wins, and I really do my best to not have this strong need for external validation. And so my worthiness is not dependent on whether I have a quote unquote good month or a bad month. So I think all of those things collectively have really shifted. And I focus on a lot longer term. Like I'm here for something so much bigger than whatever this month brings. It's really an ongoing mission to just help as many people as possible. So I look more long term now.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of like zooming out and having like a bigger picture lens. And I really like love the point of celebrating the month, especially when you're in that first week afterwards, because you can kind of get in that headspace of like, oh, but I've got to do it again, and where are my next clients and all that sort of stuff. So what do you actually do to celebrate? I know that sounds like a really basic question, but like I think the word like, oh, celebrate it is thrown around. But what are your tangible like action steps in actually celebrating a big month?
Yeah, so it looks different for numerous reasons. I'll be honest, I'm not a very materialistic person. So I don't get excited by like, oh, when I reach XYZ milestone, I'm going to buy a nice car or a nice bag or a nice, like, that's just not who I am. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't drive me. If I say that to myself, I'm not incentivized to do it really. If I do want something, I will honestly just go out and get it at this point. So yeah, that's not how I celebrate. I think it looks different, but in the beginning, honestly, just actually giving myself a hug, dancing, feeling gratitude, something as small as that was celebrating to me, because I didn't even used to do any of that. Like even just acknowledging, oh, I actually did a really good job last month, or I'm doing a really good job. Like giving myself like a hug literally was celebrating. That was significantly more than I had ever done. So that's what celebrating has looked like, is, every time I'd sign a client or something, I would actually like post on my Instagram stories, me jumping up and down, dancing like to my favorite music. Like I would really celebrate not only the person that's decided to work with me, but like myself in the process. And I feel like people were really magnetized towards that. And like I said, I honestly saw a difference in my business when I started doing that. And then naturally you just do it more, right? So I was celebrating like the biggest things and the smallest things. So that's what celebrating can look like, is just having fun, being kind, sitting in gratitude. But then it's also looked like feeling safe to share my wins as well. So I used to not share any of my wins because I didn't even think they were wins. And now I'm quite vocal on, at times like how much money I've made or how many clients I've signed, or just sharing it with like my partner or my friends, my family, or on social media, like really owning it. And that can be really scary because people can project all sorts of things about what you're focusing on, what you care about, blah, blah, blah. But I find like acknowledging it for me personally has been such a big turning point, because like I said, I used to dismiss everything I did. And like really example of that is I once trained for a half marathon. It was right before I went to that 4-day seminar in September 2019. I ran a half marathon, which was such a big deal for me. That did not come naturally. And within 5 minutes of finishing that half marathon, I literally said to my PT who ran with me, oh, cool, what's next? Like I just dismissed it immediately. And I'd spent 3+ months running every weekend, working up towards that. And then I even like at that 4-day event had said like to myself and I think to other people as well that, oh, like I'm going to run it again by myself, as if to say it didn't even count that I ran it because I ran alongside my PT, which is just ridiculous because I took every step myself. And that's what I mean by it didn't matter how big the quote unquote achievement was. I shoved it right in the ground. And so there might be people out there that see me on social media talking about money or celebrating money, but for me it's like it's so much bigger than that. It's the fact that I can even acknowledge that I've done something that really means so much to me. So yeah, I've come a long way in that sense.
I totally resonate with that. And there's been so many like, goals that I've gone, okay, tick, what's next? And I think you said it beautifully before, the more we can focus on and celebrate those wins, the more we're going to have. It's like, basic reticular activator science stuff. So I want to talk about identity, because I think as business owners, we can really wrap our identity, our self-worth into running a business, which is quite a little interesting tangle to get into, because if we do have a bad month, we think, oh, that's a reflection of me, or I'm doing something wrong. Can you talk us through your journey of, obviously at the start, you probably did have an entangled self-worth identity in the business. Can you talk us how that sort of journey went for you?
Yeah, it was this big realization that I was very driven by external factors, because growing up, that's where I noticed I received more love, in particular from my dad, was when I achieved something. Same with my grandparents, love them to bits. I'm so close to them.
Same
But
here.
they're so like, I noticed that it's all about, am I working hard? How much am I working? What have I achieved? And I noticed their eyes light up when I'm doing well. And obviously when I'm happy, they want me to be super happy. That's number one. But it's all about like, how successful am I? And I really bought into that in the beginning, to the point like, they really didn't want me to start a business to begin with. They wanted me to get a stable 9 to 5. And I understand that in hindsight, they just wanted me to be quote unquote safe and secure. And we all know that it's not as secure as people make it be anyways. They are so happy for me now because I'm doing well in it. But in the beginning, they were so skeptical of me starting. But they've said that they're so glad I didn't listen to them now and stuff. But that's because I'm doing well. So I definitely have this surrounding my family of like, it's about how much I achieve and everything. So that's been a huge pattern to break, that I am not defined by my external circumstances. And I noticed this when, I was just so emotionally up and down. Like if I had a falling out with a friend, like I just made it mean everything about me. And I was just, it was really emotionally painful. So through having a coach, I really started to work on the energetics of that. And that's where I learned the difference between like internal validation and external. And so it's been a practice. I wouldn't say I'm perfect at it by any means, but significantly better. Like I'm not really nearly as driven by the external factors, but I would say it's a journey. Like I was even reflecting on it this week, like that I'm not defined by my good results or my bad results, but it leaves me having a conversation to myself of like, then what am I defined by? And so I'm still in that at times, like really diving into that. And I think it really just, as fluffy as this sounds, really just comes down to like love. Like really, if you're not driven by external factors in any way, like you're just like whole and complete and you're defined by your love. And I think that's a really beautiful thing, but it's sure.
So it's funny because Swifty and I, Ellie Swift, our business coach, we were having a chat this week just about being neutral to it all. And that just landed so much for me, because I found that I was like, the highs of the big month, but then if I dropped a bit, it would be like, okay, well, what am I doing wrong? And she's like, nothing's wrong. Like, how can you be neutral? How can you be neutral to it all? And nothing's ever a problem. And that just hits so home. And it sounds like that you've gotten to that place now where, if it's a friendship falling out, if it's, family stuff or business, it's like, it doesn't have to mean anything unless we make it mean something.
Yeah, like she's definitely helped me a lot with that personally. Like she's the one that keeps me in check if she ever finds that I take it too personally, like the external narrative of things. But yeah, I would say I'm definitely a lot better at it. And just, I don't know, I think it's just time in business as well. It gets exhausting if you're constantly driven by purely the external factors. Because really, like, I remember the first time I had a $20,000 month, 30, 40, whatever. And it's like the second after it's happened, it's like, oh shit, nothing's different. Like nothing's changed in my life. And then you just sort of realize, why am I making these things mean so much and such a big deal? Like I was grateful, but it's not like my life significantly changed the moment I made 20,000 as opposed to like 19,000, you know? It's just in my head that I made it such a big deal. And I think when you take it off the pedestal, you can actually normalize it. And that's actually how you have it come more like consistently.
Yeah. I really love that. It's just kind of normalizing it all. It's like, 50, 20, whatever. It's like, it's just a number. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So you're obviously a very optimistic and very positive person, which I absolutely adore about you. But what does like a bad day look like for Sophia, and how do you hold yourself through those? I'm saying, quote unquote bad. How do you hold yourself through those times?
It's so funny you ask me this question because I was just on a walk with one of my friends and I was telling her how on my podcast I
Mm,
want to share more of these like raw and real episodes of like truly behind the scenes, because personally they're my favorite episodes
mm,
to listen to. Like I love them. And I would say that I'm a very transparent person, like both the highs and the lows. But what I was saying to her is like, it's quite funny because I feel like it's very rare for me these days to have one of these like majorly bad days, because I've worked so much on my mindset. I know how to turn it around, and just the stability I've created. That's not to say I don't have bad moments. Of course I do. But when I think back to like when I first started versus now, it's so much rarer. Like I really
mm-hmm.
don't remember the last time where I had like a bad day, because I had so much support around me and a skill set to like be very optimistic. And that's something my partner was saying to me the other day as well. He was like, one of your greatest skill sets is being able to turn like darkness into power. Like I know how to flip it. And so I was saying to my friend, like, I want to create these episodes, but also it's really hard for me to think of like all this bad shit to talk about, because I'm so good at turning it into something extremely positive. So I'll be honest, like it's hard to answer the question, but if I was to like, the first thing that comes to mind of like, you know, things that I do take to heart, it's probably if a client comes to me like either for whatever reason wanting to be out of the program, or like just them being so emotionally unstable, and that coming into my space and like not making that mean anything about me and having it separate and being able to hold them in that. So it's probably, I'm very like, I feel other people's feelings, and that's probably what gets to me, is if like someone comes into my world and like drops a bomb of darkness, and I need to like hold that or help them get out of that state. I would say like that's the thing that weighs down on me, is like fears like coming in, and how I navigate that. That's probably the hardest thing, if I'm being completely honest.
And it's also a hard way of like, how do you hold space for that and not let it impact your energy, not let it impact what you're doing and everything. So yeah, it's like, I feel like there's one side of like running a business, and then there's the other side of like holding space for people. And that is quite a thing in itself.
You know, no one really likes to talk about the people wanting to drop out of your programs, or the payment failures, or you know, the contract side of things, and like that stuff. Like no one likes talking about that, because people like, you're afraid people are going to be like, oh, why would someone want to drop out of their program? Maybe it's not that good. When really what I've really had to remember and learn is that it's a part of scaling. Obviously, when you are impacting more people, you have more people in your face, there's more opportunities for something to go quote unquote wrong, right? Like Tony Robbins would have thousands of people funds every day. Does that mean something bad about him? Not really. Ellie Swift would, like our coach, also have that, and she does have that. I know that. And so me hearing those stories, this is why I love being in group programs. You bring your stuff to the table, and then you have like 10 or 20 people saying, oh yeah, me too, that's happened to me, this happens to me, that just happened to me as well. I'm like, oh, it's nothing to do with me, it's actually just part of growing and scaling. And so now I know that it doesn't reflect on me, but of course it still hurts when you know that your service can really help them if they can just like trust themselves and trust me, trust the process, and go all in on that, that their whole life can change. But it's also, you know, I can't control other people's brains, so I just do the best I can. But that's definitely the part that where the external factor thing comes into play, and I need to check myself and remind myself that it doesn't mean anything about me. I don't want to be close-minded to it. I want to look at, what role have I played in this? Is there something I could have said or done better to help them, or in the future? Like I do have that conversation with myself, but I'm slowly getting a lot better of not allowing it to give me anxiety, because I think in the past, if I saw a message that, you know, isn't the nice, like I feel it in my heart immediately. It feels like a little bit of a stab. It can totally ruin my day. But I find it doesn't happen as much, just because now it's happened enough times for me to realize, like, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow, it's all fine, like blah blah blah, you know.
I think the beautiful thing about that is it just shows how much you actually deeply care about your clients, the people coming into your world. Because if you didn't care, you'd be like, oh, sweet, bye, ciao. You know, but you're actually very empathetic towards the people in your circles, which I think is a beautiful trait.
Yeah, thank you. I care so deeply, and
Yeah.
sometimes it comes back to bite me because I do care. Like, I want to see everyone succeed. In particular, you know, when someone comes into my space, like receiving money without them having a financial or emotional return on investment just doesn't feel that good to me. You know, like it's not like someone joins my program and like, cool, like got the cash, all good now. I'm like, I really sometimes treat my clients that are in my self-paced course like almost as a client, like a one client, but I can't help but check in and want to make sure they're okay. And I'm really grateful that one of the biggest pieces of feedback I get in my programs is how much I care and how much I go above and beyond, and the fact that they notice that, you know, makes me feel really good. So I know it's not like not recognized, but I think, yeah, it can totally come back to bite me sometimes because I get too emotionally involved.
I feel your girlfriend. So you are obviously a productivity superhuman manifesting generator. I think I was listening to a podcast of yours this morning, and it was like you went on a 2-hour walk in the morning and you listened to a podcast, you responded to all your DMs, all your voice messages, your boxes, whatever, not your boxes, all your voices. And I was like, oh my God, we need some productivity tips from Sofia. So like, can you talk us through your top productivity tips?
Sure. I mean, I'll be honest, I've been a very organized person since the day I can remember.
Yeah.
It does come naturally to me, but obviously it has evolved over time. I honestly just don't like having like stuff in the back of my brain to do. I like having it out of sight, out of mind. So I think that is something that drives me, is like, I don't want a huge to-do list. I want to be clean. And so I find that what's it called? It's like that law of, what's that law where
Murphy's Law?
it's where you fill the time that you have available.
I know the one. Yeah, I know it. I don't know what it's called.
I've had a mental blank, but
Yeah.
essentially, like, they say that you will take the amount of time provided to complete something. So if we were given 2 weeks to complete an assignment in school, it typically takes majority of people the 2 weeks to complete it. Whereas if you're given 24 hours to do the very same thing, you'll probably find a way to do that. And so I find that, you know, now that I have such a spacious calendar, like I have not had many calls this week. Like, you are my only commitment today, and it's
That's
10.
so good.
Yeah. So like, I have a lot of space, and if I'm not careful, I can drag out very small tasks over a long period of time because I'm not in a rush. And I'd rather go live my life or do something instead of just be constantly working. And so I find if I'm just really productive, like early in the morning or whatever, I can get a lot done in a short amount of time. And so I like doing, my biggest productivity tip, to be honest, is like multitasking. And I know that that's kind of controversial. Not everyone's going to say that
So
that's
Sophia to say that.
but like, what I mean by that is, like, when I'm out for a walk, I can be doing something else that's at the same time, like listening to a podcast. So I'm walking and I'm learning now. And if I've listened to my podcast, it could be an audiobook, or I often like will talk on my Instagram story. So I leverage that time to like add some sort of value on my stories. And then I feel like, okay, cool, now I've added value on Instagram and I don't have to worry about that for the rest of the day. Everything else is a bonus. I sometimes go live, like in my Facebook group or something like that. In that time, I might call a friend or my grandma, or I will listen to voice messages and respond to them, because it's so easy to do that. Like, I'm either just going to be like walking, or I can do those things at the same time. And I don't know if it's a manifesting generator, but
I think it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, like, you know, I'm in more flow when I'm moving around. So I feel like my voice message responses to my clients are better when I'm moving my body. Like, I just feel like I'm in a better state. I think, like, the endorphins or whatever it is. So I find that, you know, I just like using my time to the best of my ability. So I would say my morning walks are like my most productive time, because there's so many things I can do at the same time. So like, usually by the end, I've responded to all of my clients, you know, I've caught up on messages, I've posted on my stories, and potentially gone live as well, like in my Facebook group. And then, like, that's like majority of my tasks done, and I've gone for a beautiful walk at the same time. So I would say like it's leveraging my time like that is helpful, but I also recognize that that doesn't come naturally to one.
I'm just picturing you walking down the street with your phone and walking into a pole or like falling into a gutter or something. I would do that.
Like voice messages, because I
Yes.
don't have to look at my phone. That's actually why I do it, because I don't have to look down. I just press record. I'm looking up. So
Safety first.
I think that's why it works out, because I'm still looking at the view.
So I'd love to pivot to, because you've obviously been in the coaching industry for, 4 or 5 years now, and you would have heard so many strategies, so many different techniques, so many different ways of doing business. How did you find like what's truly in alignment and authentic for you and cut out the noise? Because there's a lot of it.
There's a lot of noise, and if there's one thing I've gotten trapped into, it is the noise. Like I told you, the first thing I did when I started my business was I ran a 5-day challenge in a Facebook group, and I was so called to that naturally, because I was like, wow, social media is so negative right now because of COVID. Like, what can I do? And that's an idea I just came up with. And I was obviously, without realizing, just really trusting my intuition there. Not at the time, I was so naive to like, what you need to do to grow a business. Like, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just like, what can I do to actually help people? That's what came to mind. I did it, and it worked. So, but then when I really started investing in myself or following more coaches, I would see on social media just a lot of marketing of like, you have to do this to grow your business. This is the only way to do it. This is the best way. This is the fastest way. This is the cheapest way. I would hear all this noise and I would really buy into it. And so what that looks like is I all of a sudden had invested in so many different coaches, so many different courses and events, from the mentality of I am missing something, because I would see people's incredible results online. I'm like, they've been in business less time than me or the same amount of time, and they have double the results. Like, I'm missing something. How are they doing that? And so I'd invest in all these programs, and don't get me wrong, some of the programs were obviously contradicting each other very much and saying different things. But honestly, what I found more so is that most programs were saying the same thing. Like, they all talked about the power of a niche and a brand and having an offer and all this sort of stuff. And there was a lot of crossovers, which is a positive thing. But what that goes to show you is that I wasn't missing anything. I just, like, the belief was driving an action that really wasn't serving me, because every time you invest in a new coach, you're almost like starting again in so many ways. To re-explain yourself to them, or you have to do it in their way. You're just constantly changing things, and whilst that can be positive, there's often a lot of setbacks with that. And that's why now I just stay with Ellie. It's not that I'm necessarily learning something new every time. I just can't be bothered explaining myself and starting again. I've been there and done that, and so I just stay with her and have that stability. Someone that really knows me, like, she knows me so well. She knows how to help me make certain decisions, just because she knows like me as a human being. And that's the power of long-term investing. And that's why a lot of my clients believe in long-term investing, and they just keep re-signing with me, because they recognize the power of that, because I also share that with them, because I've noticed the difference in myself when I stopped jumping from coach to coach and instead decided to actually commit to mastery. So marketing I really fell for. Like, some people were sipping margaritas on a beach, like saying that they do one post a day, and I'm like, that is not my reality. I'm spending all day every day following up with people, messaging people, doing all these things. And so I'd invest in all this stuff, only to find that behind the scenes there was like a different reality painted quite often. Like, I one program, and this isn't really a judgment but more just like an observation, but this person had like really painted this picture that, she had grown her business to 10K months in the first 3 months of her business through like this one particular strategy. That I was really appealed to that during that program, only to find out that like that's true from that strategy. But then she had been in business for like, I don't know, a couple of years before that with another strategy. And it's like, that's a big piece of missing
It's like 3 years of missing information. Yeah.
And I've probably got those timelines slightly wrong, but besides the point, my point is you hear this pretty marketing on the outside of like, I did this in this amount of days or seconds or whatever. And there's quite often like a whole story behind. And it's, if there's one piece of advice I could give, is just to like not buy into that stuff, and really it's about the person. Like, do you energetically align with them? Do you like the lifestyle that they have, the human being that they are, the values they have? I find that's actually a lot more important at the end of the day. So yeah, I've invested in a lot of programs and different strategies, and so I feel like the positive is I've got a really good insight to like all of the different ways you can grow your business, knowing that we all are different with our personalities and desires and visions, and I can support my clients to create a unique marketing strategy for them based on their goals and vision. So that's one positive, but ironically, when you ask me like what I do now and what feels most aligned, it's actually what I did from day one on my own, which is running events. Like I absolutely love running these challenges in my group, or masterclasses, or trainings and workshops. It really fills my heart up because I'm helping multiple people at once, and I'm actually adding value. Like I'm giving them a training for free or very low ticket, and then if they want to work with me, there's that next step presented to them. So that's what I did from day one, and that's still the thing that makes me the most money and brings me the most joy and is the easiest as well. So yeah, that's a long way to get right back to where I started, but that's what it looked like.
No, and it's so funny because I feel like that's the same with me. It's like I started in graphic design and they had to go through like, you know, however many years to come all the way back there. So totally feel you on that. But I want to dive into what is like the weirdest or the worst piece of business advice that you've received, or a strategy, or, you know, because there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Probably I don't really resonate with like the cold calling approach, or like convincing people why they should invest in you, or I'm forgetting the word, but like psychologically manipulating, like a fear-based kind of approach. I really don't resonate with that. I obviously like the whole metaphors to handle objections, like I don't really like that stuff. I think it can be helpful to understand why people say what they say and help them the best decision for themselves, but I'd like to do that in a very like me way. I don't like to follow a script on that. I like to be really present with the person I'm talking to, and if what they're saying truly aligns with where they're at and where they want to be, then amazing, regardless. But I don't want to convince people, help people get loans. Like that's some of the stuff that people teach, is like, I don't want to be involved in that process. Find your own way of coming into a program. I don't want to be a part of like forcing it to happen. I just feel like that doesn't feel too good. Another thing, when done incorrectly, can be bad, that I was taught, is appointment setting. So it's basically where you hire someone to do messaging and DMs on behalf of you. And I feel like that can be done in a great way if you know what you're doing. But often I feel like, yeah, that doesn't really end well. If someone's talking on behalf of you, that can really affect your brand. And that's something that I was taught at one point, that I thought this is the way to grow my business. Like this person was making like $500,000 a month doing it. And I really got swept up in that there was some truth to that. And I very quickly just like, I didn't realize till after why I was feeling so stressed and in fight or flight. And that's because it's like speaking on behalf of me, and it did not feel good. And same with like, at one point, I had people like, it was part of a package that I had like included, where they would write content for you, and I would wake up and like a post had been posted that I just like does not sound
terrifying.
Like, and I had anxiety, and I deleted everything, and I was just like, I can't do this. Like I'd literally rather do it all myself, like than have someone speak on behalf of me. So that's probably a part of my journey that I had no regrets, but like that I back, I'm like, no, I'm not doing it.
I think it's like, you have to try all the things to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And I do think that everyone has their own unique sort of blueprint and way of doing things. And some people, they find it, by accident. Like for you, it was the first thing that you tried, but then you had to go through the process of learning and unlearning all the things to come back to that. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's good for people just to be like, oh God, like maybe that way doesn't work for me. Or, you know, maybe I'm not meant to send out a million emails. You know, for me, I'm like I've only just jumped on TikTok today and I'm like, I'm gonna try it. Like, who knows? This could be a strategy for me, but I'm also open to the fact that it could be, you know, a piece of crap. Who knows?
Had every social media platform, every freaking strategy within them. I've hired like the best of the best experts for all of those things. I feel like I've got a good understanding. And what I've really learned is that there's no right or wrong. There's actually no better or worse. There's just which one feels the best to you. Because when it actually feels like full body fuck yes, then you are going to lean into that and you're going to want to master it. Like I commit to like mastering events because I enjoy it. Like I don't have to, like, I guess it's another productivity. I don't need someone to keep me accountable or convince me why I should learn this or do whatever, because I like have this like feeling within me that like this is a very congruent way to grow my business. Like I'm adding value, people are coming to me, people are making a decision on their own accord whether they want to continue with me, and that feels really, really good. So yeah, there's no right or wrong. It's just like which one feels the best to you, and then go all in on that. Like don't dabble on it. That's what I was doing, is I was dabbling in lots of things because I thought I was missing something. And the moment I let go of that belief and just went to what I actually wanted to do rather than what was quote unquote right, that's when it worked. And then yeah, the business grew.
Well, you're also showing that you trust yourself and you back your intuition. And it's like, yeah, moving from jack of all trades to a master of one, which you're nailing, you know. So, Sophia, I would love to close on a question, and I want to change your question today. So, what are you most proud of in yourself or your business right now?
That's a great question. I am most proud of the life I've created, to be honest. Like when I look back on where I was 5 years ago, like working 5 different jobs, like 60 plus hours a week, like walking people's dogs, cleaning floors, catering, making coffees, decluttering. Like
you're a hustler.
Yeah, and I really felt like anything for an extra $20. Like I was really just doing that and babysitting, and all my weekends were gone. I had no free time, and I honestly kind of enjoyed, like I'm a go-getter. I love working and doing things. So I it's not that I even disliked it. It was more just like, can I do that forever? Is this my big dream? No, it wasn't. And when I look at my life now, like I said, this is my only commitment today, and I just got so much spaciousness. Like if I wanted to go on a week holiday 5 years ago, I had to ask 5 different fucking people if I could go. Do you know what I mean? Now I don't ask anyone. I just book it. And that still is like, I've got goosebumps telling you that. Like I don't think I'll ever get over that I can just, whoa, I don't have to ask anyone for permission. I can just go. And that's the coolest thing. So probably just the life I've created, the fact that I've got a lot of freedom, time, financial and emotional freedom. Like, you know, not bound to a location. I've got a lot of time, got a lot of income, which gives you a lot of options on how you want to do things. And I'm probably the most proud of that, because I've shown myself what is possible when you like, you know, believe in yourself and you keep going and you never give up. But then also I know that I'm being a genuine good example for my clients and my audience, that they can have this as well. Like if they're not currently satisfied with their life, or they're settling in any shape or form, they actually don't need to settle in any area of your life at any time. Like you just don't. And I want to be that example for other people. So I would say that's what I'm most proud of, is just that, like, I obviously feel I've had to come a long way in my own self-worth to even feel worthy of that. And not guilt around, you know, not working 24/7 or whatever. So
I did see a little post the other day of your calendar, and I think you had one calendar event in the whole week. And I was like, Sophia, oh my God, my diary is like colored red, like,
different. So basically with my mastermind, which is like my main program, 1 week I have, on a Tuesday, I have 4 calls to support all different time zones. So 4 Q&A calls, and that's a big day, like 4 90-ish minute calls. But then the following week is what I call workshop week. So I have one workshop in one of those 4 times, and it alternates. So it gives me kind of a break. So I've got 4 calls one week, 1 call the next week. And then here and there on top of that, I'll have a podcast episode like this or a one-on-one check-in call. So there's absolutely, like, it varies. But the way I've designed my business is like 2 of my programs are primarily self-paced. Like I have a very low commitment to them myself. And then my mastermind, I spend a lot of time in Slack with my clients, and I have those calls and check-in calls, and definitely a lot more of my time. But even so, and I worked with Pixie on this, like our kinesiologist, it really helped me because towards the end of last year, I was feeling a little bit exhausted because I was doing 4 calls every week.
Wow.
And all of these other things. And she really helped me to redesign my program based on my human design and everything to make sure that I have, you know, my needs being met, and also making sure that it's still equally, if not more, benefited my clients. And it does, because I think before I was giving them so freaking much that they didn't have space to breathe and implement, whereas now it's structured in a much better way that people look forward to both of the types of calls because there's that variety and space in between.
Yeah.
I love the structure of my program now, but it didn't always look like that. Like the end of last year, I felt very exhausted, but that's also because I was doing certain strategies that didn't fully align. And now that I've let go of literally everything that didn't feel good, yeah, my life
feels a lot better.
Yeah.
So good. Well, I would love for you to share what you've got coming up, if there's any of your live events you've got coming up or any ways that people can work with you.
Yeah, depending on when people are listening to this, to be honest, I'm running an event most months. There's usually something going on. So my biggest recommendation would be to come onto my Instagram at Sofia Rose Bernadi. And if you just look at my bio link, you'll see all of the upcoming things. So I have lots of free resources dependent on your stage in business and your focus that you can go straight and just watch. There's no, like, it's just for you. And then, yeah, I'm usually running some sort of live event or so forth. But yeah, if you're a female coach wanting to grow your business to consistent $10,000 months and beyond through the lens of mastering your psychology, your strategy, and your energy, I have, a lot of different offerings that could support you on that journey, depending on where you're at.
Well, you are amazing. And it's been so nice to chat with you all things. And, you know, I'm just, as I said last week, just seeing your growth over the past couple of years that I've known you has just been incredible to watch. So I look forward to the next couple of years to see what Sofia has in store.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. And yeah, everyone that's listening should come onto my podcast and listen to the episode with you.
Yes.
So that's Rising Coaches with Sofia Bernadi. So definitely go listen to Shani's story, because yeah, that's next level. It was a great.
We've just had 2 good chats 2 Fridays in a row. Can't get much better than that.
Yeah, so good.
Alrighty, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.